So what do you feel like talking about today?
It's very important for us to learn disciple making is a very important component in the ministry. And we have gotten away from that. Are you Christian? Our main concern is, are you Christian? And you'll be surprised that the word Christian, how many times it is in the Bible. You and I know that, and those who know the Bible, they know it's just mentioned once or twice, depends on the translation. So the key thing that we are focusing, and we need to focus as a community of faith, discipleship. Are we making disciples? So how do we make disciples? Some of the easy principles that we find in scriptures that we're going to talk today about. The whole segment we want to talk about encouraging one another. The Bible has more than 100 times the word one another. Life is built for us to be not a solo journey, but it calls for us to be in fellowship with one another, accountable to one another, relate to one another, love one another, serve one another. It's not just becoming a Christian. I think when you come to faith in Christ, you start realizing how many commands. There are about 50 commands that relate to one another in a positive way. And so today our focus will be to think more on disciple making and how Jesus did this. You'll be surprised the way Jesus encouraged the disciples.
Yeah, I always find it amazing, right, that when people talk about discipleship making, I don't know if it's you, but probably more me, that this alarm bell goes off in my heart of going back to school and sitting there in a desk and waiting for the right answer, and that you don't get to be a disciple until you have the right answer. Now, I know that's not what you're talking about, so I love the other verbs that you use there, the relating to, the connecting with, the ability to walk beside, the ability to serve, all powerful verbs. So when you say the words disciple making or even disciple, where are we going?
The disciple making and disciples, it's a lifelong journey. And that's what we need to realize, so that you'll have the comfort of knowing there is no course to finish. No book to finish, no season to finish. There is no degree of becoming a disciple. But discipleship is a lifelong journey. And what I do is, along with me, I pick up somebody and I just walk with that person. As that person grows, I am growing. What I've learned, I share, not by preaching to them, but more so walking with them in the places that is so difficult for all of us in our life's journey. And that's why Jesus sent 2 by 2. So no one is a big boss, nobody is a big leader. 2 by 2 means it just simply says we both are on equal platform. Maybe you know a little bit more, but I have experience in this, you have experience in that. But the journey of discipleship becomes more joyful when we walk together with someone. And that's the journey. And you've done it. I've seen you in your room. You have once a week somebody sitting and you go through the book. And I'm saying, yeah, Bob, when the book is done, don't think they're done. Neither you're done.
Well, and it's true, right? This idea of disciple and disciple making is not the old classroom version that I kind of alluded to there.
Correct.
It's so much more. Yeah. And I think that's probably something that's a problem with the Western culture here, is that you go to school, you get your degree, you're done. You get to go, and now you get to do something. Where I think maybe the more Eastern philosophy, and the more biblically centered philosophy, honestly, is the one that says, you know what, no, it's not about you learn everything and now you get a degree. It's about you are learning everything as a part of the journey, and you're more of the experiential learning. Yes, there are books. We've been blessed by the best interpretations about it. No doubt about that. The Bible is. I'm not saying that anything against any of that, but I am saying that it requires us to kind of take on a different mindset as it relates to learning to be like Christ.
Exactly. Yeah. And watch Jesus, how he made the disciples by just walking with them, living with them, eating with them, going to places with them. And all this time, there's a learning that is going on amongst the disciples. I mean, that's the process of discipling. But one of the ways that I was surprised, the way that Jesus does encourage the people, which you and I would never think. I go back to Matthew chapter 14, beautiful passage. All of us know this passage. And I'll just read it just for us to kind of set the tone for us. Matthew chapter 14. Immediately after this, a big, kind of feeding program happens. Mm-hmm. And the Bible is so beautiful because every word has power in it. Every word has a meaning in it. And so he says, immediately after this, Jesus insisted that his disciples, I love the way the tone is set up, okay? Jesus insisted that his disciples get back into the boat and cross to the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. And I started to think about this a little deeper. I'm talking about encouragement, but in this context, what Jesus is doing is, he's doing a very different thing that you and I would never do this to encourage people. He insisted them to get on the boat. He insisted them to get on their journey. He insisted them to go back to what they're really called to do. This is, watching miracle is comfortable, isn't it? Being in a church with all the sound system, it's
right. If Jesus did all the work, you didn't have to do any work. I'm just hanging out, waiting, man.
It's comfortable.
Right.
And you can get comfortable. And this is my heart's desire, that so many people get comfortable in their journey. They find a place and they sit down. You may study all the books, study as much as you want to study all the books you want to study, but I think you need to get back on your boat.
Yeah, well, there's a good word, right? Because we know of how many people who would have, I think of that scene often, and that word insisted, right? And keep coming back to, well, what was his point there? What was really taking place? And, if you were the entourage of Jesus, are you all of a sudden got your chest puffed up and you see Peter walking like, yeah, we're that guy, and Jesus saw, what? It wasn't about you. So I want you to get back on the boat and get moving, because I don't want you to get stuck here thinking maybe you're more than you actually are in the moment, right? And I think that's a very good remembrance, right? He loved them enough to tell them, don't get stuck in the popularity of the miracle.
Yeah.
Get moving into the mission. Right. And I need to get you away from here. And I think that's really an important thing for us to remember as a leader, right? People sometimes will want to come beside you because of who you are or what you do.
Yes.
And then when you tell them to go and do something else, they kind of hesitate. Yeah. I wonder if those disciples, if anybody went, we're not getting on the boat, we're going to stay with you, Jesus. Where are you going? We want to go with you.
The word is clear in a sense when he had to insist. I'm sure there was some kind of an argumentation that was going on. Right. Hey, you guys go on the boat and I'm going to be with him. The scriptures are so beautiful. He stayed alone means what? Right. The rest of the gang had to get on the boat. Like you said earlier, the show is over. We fed the people. The show is over. It was great that you guys were hanging around with me and you were able to feed the people. And I'm sure people receiving the food, they were saying, wow, you're Jesus. When the show ends, the scene is done, the curtain is down, get back on your boat. What a powerful word. I like the word insist, Bob, because I think it reminds us something that as a disciple maker, sometimes when you have people in your group, you have to push them out from their comfort zone. Yeah. And I've done it, and I'm going to tell you some of the stories, but I think this is so powerful that, we hesitate. These guys are new, don't push them. They gotta know their Bible a little deeper. They really are just I agree with all those things. I agree we need to learn the word. But learning doesn't mean that you sit in a place and you just learn. Learning also means that you do. Why do you learn? Do while you learn. That's the model of Jesus making disciples. And like you said, in the Western culture, we quickly find a place to sit down, learn. I get my degree and I come back and I know all the terminology, Greeks and maybe hermeneutics, and then I think of, man, I can do it now. See, the danger is I can do it now.
Right.
We should never come to a stage, I can do it now. And that's the teaching that I'm praying that our folks would understand, our people should understand, that Jesus pushed them out. Wherever you get a little comfortable, he says, the word insisting is a very interesting word. Some of the versions, I was doing some study on the constrained. KJV says he was constrained. In other words, compelled.
Yeah.
He compelled them, Bob, I want you to go. I'm compelled. Compelling is something that drives you from a place. And I'm sure, like you were saying, some of them may be saying, okay, you 3 guys go on the boat, or you 7 guys go, and Peter, John, and James, I'm going to hang around with Jesus because he cannot be left alone. He says, no, I can take care of myself. You guys go. He pushed them.
Well, and really, how much did they? I go back to that word. You're right. Is so powerful. And how many people have we known over the course of time who have intersected us, loved on us, and then went, "Yeah, I'm just going to stay right here." Right? No. I had it one the other day where someone said, I really like, and they basically shared the message of the gospel, and then shared, well, but you always tell us the same thing. Go. And I honestly wanted to scream, well, why aren't you? Right? But I just said, well, it's just, I don't know. That's not, you need more. I'm like, no, you don't, you learn more, I believe, by going and attempting something and then coming back sometimes, and you got to go, okay, that didn't work, or this worked, We both had failures in our ministries where we thought for sure they would work, and then they don't work, and you go, But it doesn't stop us, because we know one thing for certain. We will learn in the process of, even in the failure, God does not waste a thing on us.
Yes.
Right? And there's the encouragement in that insisted. He insisted because he knew they had to walk, or they had to row, or they had to get stuck in that storm. I mean, there's a lot there.
And we will go through this because the encouragement for disciples is so important that Jesus, you never think, it's a kind of a negative term to say he insisted, but don't you think Jesus knew what they were going to face, what was going to happen, and they were going to go through this next scene is a big storm that happens in their life? Don't you think he knew all that? He knew all these things, but yet he said, here's one of the things that encouragement doesn't sound positive when you say this. He pushed them out. He pushed them out. You and I would never think pushing people to do something that's an encouragement. I was labeled in one church, he's a pushy pastor. I was literally, people got scared to come close to me, because if you get close to me, you talk to me a little bit more, I find something in you, next thing I'm going to tell you to go and do it. I hate for people to just come and sit and listen and go. The closer you find in our ministries, in our journeys, if I know something that you're good at, I want you to do it. I've done it with several people like that, to push them out. Somebody pushed me out. It was a big overseas, a big crusade, and my spiritual mentor, and I've never done this, hundreds of people that gathered to listen to him as a speaker for this big crusade, and flight delay, and he couldn't make it in time. So I get a phone call. He says, guess what? You're preaching tonight. You're opening up the crusade. And Bob, you could imagine that I've never done in public speaking for such a big audience. And all these people that were there, and I was so scared, and I said, what happened that night was a new gateway that opened for me. A new gateway opened. If he did not, he could have chosen anybody on the team. He could have chosen a local pastor, a well-known pastor, but he said, you do it. And I'm young, and I said, I call him spiritual father, and I said, you really think I can do this? He says, no, I'm not there, you do it. Bob was sort of most scared. He pushed me. He insisted that I do that. I said, there were Bible, I would say scholars sitting there. They were pastors, years of experience. I'm just a kid on the block. And he says, you do it. Bob, it was the most nervous night, but it was the most blessed night. It was the beginning of a great beginning that it never ended. He just pushed me to an arena, a gateway that I always will remember that I can do it because I was pushed.
Wow, great story, and one that I think we should pick up a little bit on our next session. That you got pushed, but you also said yes. And I think that's the Christian answer.
Yeah, it's very nervous.
Yeah,
it's very nerve-wracking to do that because you're never equipped to do it. How are you equipped to do such a big crusade which you've never done before?
Yeah.
You're never equipped. And I think the word encouragement is a good word, and we always narrow it down to make you feel good.
Yeah.
And our culture says make you feel good, but in Eastern culture, it's so different. When you want to make a disciple, you give him the hardest task.
Mm.
You give him the hardest task, so they will know that this journey is not an easy journey.
Mm.
And then you learn.
Yeah.
Then you learn. And I think we're going to enjoy this series of time to insist people to do this, but also to learn how Jesus did the disciple making.
Yeah.
I'm just going back to the book where he did what he did.
Yeah.
So we'll talk.
Awesome. We'll talk more next week.
Thank you.